dark matter.
He heard it stop, outside the crawlspace hatch, on the basement floor. He had left the hatch open. He heard it come down. He heard it cross the basement floor. He heard it stop at the entrance to the crawlspace. He shined the flashlight. A man was crouching at the hatch. Thin, pale in the way of someone who has not been in sunlight for a long time. His clothes were the clothes of a person who had been wearing the same things for months, unwashed, worn, the fabric thinning at the elbows and knees. His hair was long and matted. His face was the face of someone who had once been ordinary and had been doing something extraordinary for so long that the ordinary had been replaced by something else.
The last photograph. The box from her mother's house arrived on a Tuesday. Caroline had been expecting it. Her mother had died 6 weeks ago. The house had been sold, and the executor had been sending boxes of personal items in batches, each one carefully packed and labeled in the executor's precise handwriting. This was the 4th box. The label said, "Bedroom, personal items." She set it on the kitchen table and made coffee before she opened it. She had learned to make coffee before opening the boxes. This one contained the expected things: a jewelry box with costume jewelry and one good piece, the pearl earrings her mother had worn to every important occasion for 40 years, a small framed photograph of Caroline's parents on their wedding day, her mother's reading glasses still in their case, which Caroline found harder to look at than the photograph, a Bible with a ribbon marker still in it, the ribbon at the 23rd Psalm, which is where her mother had always kept it, had kept it there for as long as Caroline could remember. And at the bottom of the box, wrapped in tissue paper, a photograph. Caroline unwrapped it. It was a photograph of her house. Her house, the house she currently lived in, the house she had bought 3 years ago, the Victorian on Clement Street with the blue shutters and the hydrangeas in front that she had been meaning to replace for 2 seasons. She looked at it. She turned it over. On the back, in her mother's handwriting, a date. The date was 3 days from now. She looked at the front of the photograph again. It was her house, definitely her house. She could see the specific crack in the front walk that she had been meaning to have repaired, the way the second shutter from the left hung slightly wrong. Her house exactly. She looked at the date again. Her mother had died 6 weeks ago. This photograph had been in her mother's house for at least 6 weeks. The date on the back was 3 days from now. She turned the photograph over and looked at the front and looked at it very carefully. She had been looking at it for a full minute before she saw the window. The second floor window, the window of her bedroom, the window that looked out over the front garden, was lit. The warm amber of a bedroom lamp at night. The photograph had been taken at night. She was looking at the window when she saw the figure in it. Small, dark against the amber light, a figure standing at the window looking out. She was standing at the window looking out. She recognized her own silhouette with the specific certainty of seeing yourself in a window, the particular way you stand, the particular angle of your head. She was standing in her bedroom window looking out. The photograph was taken from the front garden. The photograph was dated 3 days from now. She put the photograph down on the kitchen table, and she looked at it, and she drank her coffee, and she was very calm in the way that people are sometimes very calm when something has happened that is too large for the available emotional responses. She thought about her mother. Her mother had been a careful woman. Not superstitious, not fanciful, a retired school teacher who had kept precise records of everything, who had dated every photograph she had ever taken with the specific thoroughness of someone who understood that memory was unreliable and documentation was not. She did not make mistakes with dates. She had not made a mistake with this date. Caroline picked up the photograph. She looked at the window, at her own silhouette in the lit window. She looked at the garden in the photograph, at the hydrangeas, at the front walk with its crack, at the hanging shutter. She looked at the angle of the photograph. It had been taken from approximately the center of the front garden. Whoever had taken it had been standing in the garden looking up at the window. She looked at the silhouette in the window. She looked at the garden in the photograph. She looked at the silhouette in the window. She understood something. The silhouette was her. She was in the window. She recognized herself completely. But whoever had taken the photograph was standing in the garden below. And the photograph had been in her mother's house, and her mother was dead. She stood up from the kitchen table. She went to the front window, the ground floor, looking out at the front garden, the hydrangeas, the cracked walk, the hanging shutter. She looked at the garden. She looked at the center of the garden where whoever had taken the photograph had been standing. She looked at it for a long time. Then she went upstairs. She went to her bedroom. She stood at the window. She looked out at her front garden. At the center of the garden where whoever had taken the photograph would have been standing. She stood at the window and she looked out and she thought about the date 3 days from now, and she thought about her own silhouette in the lit bedroom, and she thought about who had been in her garden with a camera at night 3 days from now, and then, somehow, in some way that she did not have a framework for, gotten the photograph to her mother before her mother died. She thought about that for a very long time. She did not come up with an answer. She went back downstairs. She sat at the kitchen table. She looked at the photograph. She turned it face down. She thought about calling someone, her sister, a friend, someone she could tell this to. She thought about what she would say. She thought about how it would sound. She turned the photograph face up. She looked at the window in the photograph, at her silhouette, at the lit bedroom. She looked at it the way you look at something you know is going to be true in 3 days and cannot stop. She thought about her mother, about the careful dating, about the 23rd Psalm still marked with the ribbon. She thought about what her mother might have been trying to tell her. She turned the photograph over. She looked at the date. She thought, in 3 days, I am going to stand at my bedroom window and look out at my front garden. She thought, someone is going to be in my garden. She thought, they are going to take this photograph. She thought, and then somehow, this photograph is going to go back in time to my mother's house, where my mother is going to write the date on the back and put it in a box where I won't find it until after she is dead and after the date has arrived. She thought about all of that. She thought about one other thing. She turned the photograph face up. She looked at her silhouette in the window. She looked at it very carefully. She had been looking at it for 10 minutes before she was certain. The silhouette in the window was not looking at the garden. It was looking to the left, at something inside the room. Something the photograph could not show. Something that was in the bedroom with her. 3 days from now, something was going to be in her bedroom with her, and she was going to look at it, and someone was going to be in her garden taking a photograph, and then, somehow, this photograph was going to find its way to her mother's box of personal items, and then to Caroline's kitchen table.
She sat at the kitchen table for a long time. She thought about leaving, about being somewhere else in 3 days, about not being in the house, about the silhouette in the window not being her because she was not there. She thought about this. She thought about her mother, about the 23rd Psalm, about the careful dating, about what her mother had been trying to tell her. She thought about whether her mother had been warning her, or whether her mother had been documenting something she had already seen, something she had seen the way the dead sometimes see things, from wherever the dead go, looking back at the living and at what was coming for them. Whether the photograph was a warning or a record. She sat at the kitchen table. She looked at the photograph. She did not leave. 3 days later, she was standing at her bedroom window looking out at her front garden when she heard something in the room behind her. She turned. She looked at it. In the garden below, a flash.
Next time on Dark Matter.
It was following them up. "How fast?" she said. "Slower than us," Reeves said. "We're pulling away." She looked at the sonar. She looked at the shape on the sonar. She had been thinking about the scale wrong. The submersible was a reference point, and she had been using it as a reference point, and the scale she had been operating with had been wrong. She recalculated. She recalculated twice. "James," she said. "I know," he said. "The size." "I know." "How long has it been down there?" she said. He did not answer. She watched the sonar. The shape below them was still moving upward, still slower than them, still pulling. At the current rate, they would reach the surface 11 hours after it did. 11 hours. She looked at the sonar. She thought about the survey data, about every dive to the Challenger Deep, about why nothing this size had ever been detected. She thought about the smoothness of its surface, about what she had seen when the scale had resolved. She thought about the fact that it had not been moving when they arrived, that it had only started moving after they arrived.
Please like and subscribe.